David Hertel in for Aaron and Natasha. If you find yourself shopping online more than you'd like to admit or spending most of your weekends at a shopping mall, then here's a March challenge you'll want to get on board with. Climate Action Media Group 1.5 has a clothing detox challenge where you're encouraged not to buy any clothes whatsoever for the entire month. Not only would that help your wallet, but it would also help the environment. Joining us to explain is Javad NASIRY, Professor of Operations Management at McGill University's Desautels School of Business. Professor NASIRY, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, David.
So did I butcher your name in any way?
That was correct. No problem at all.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure. So tell me what the main goal of this challenge is.
Absolutely. So this is a challenge to try and warn consumers about the environmental consequences of their consumption pattern, especially when it comes to apparel.
So what do we need to be thinking about? Because I know a lot of us, and that includes me, and even though I was a former environment minister, sometimes we get very frustrated because we want to do our part, but it seems that whatever we do, it's just so overwhelming. So when it comes to clothes, what kind of impact are we talking about here?
Absolutely. So at the moment, apparel supply chains, apparel industry is accounting for about 20% of water pollution and 10% of overall carbon emissions in the world.
Okay, let's repeat that. So you're saying, I think it's important. We need to put emphasis on this because we don't hear this enough. So could you repeat those two figures? I think
Absolutely.
Those are so important.
Absolutely. So 20% of water pollution.
Wow.
And 10% of overall carbon emissions in the world are due to apparel or clothing production. And this was in a report by European Parliament, and it simply drives the attention to the environmental consequences of apparel.
And some of us, I mean, we all shop for clothes, and so what are the tips and tricks to help us, resist temptation to buy clothes, or if you have to buy clothes. I mean, it's a necessity. Some of it is not. I grant you that, but I mean, sometimes when you need clothes, you just need clothes. So, what can we do?
Absolutely. I think the main point of this challenge to go free of buying clothes in March is essentially to draw the attention to our consumption habits. So in case we need to buy clothing, we need to buy, but we also need to pay attention that a Canadian, on average, is throwing away about 32 kilograms of apparel per year.
Per year? So every year we throw away, on average, 32 kilos of clothes.
Absolutely. So overall, in Canada, we have about 1.3 million tons of apparel waste, out of which only 250,000 tons is either reused or recycled. That simply means, it's a simple math saying that 1.1 million tons of apparel every year in Canada is being thrown into the landfills or is being incinerated. So this simply means that what we have to pay attention to is whether what we are buying is actually what we need. And also what it is that we are buying, because certain trends in the industry, for example, fast fashion, is driving consumption higher. So we are producing more, we are buying more, but we are using the clothing less often, and then we throw them away, which has to end up in something, either in landfills or incineration, if we cannot either reuse it or recycle it. But unfortunately, at the moment, the capacity to reuse or recycle is limited, and the majority of the apparel waste goes into Canadian landfills.
So already what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of clothes we just basically almost never use. So first of all, with that, instead of throwing it away, is there a way, for example, like I have some clothes that I set aside. They're worn. They're maybe a bit ripped. They would maybe if they were mended, they could have a second life. Is there a way to recycle, reuse? I mean, obviously there's donating, but Is there ways, if you're going to, let go of some clothes to get them, give them a second life?
Absolutely. So at the moment, what happens is that in Canada, we don't have an efficient way of collecting clothes, which means essentially we are throwing clothes away with the other type of household waste.
Mm-hmm.
So and it goes, unfortunately,
to the landfill.
Or incineration,
yeah.
Unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, one of the best things that we could do once we are done with apparel, it doesn't really matter whether that apparel or clothing is perhaps with some defects or it has some issues with it. The best would be to separate it and then donate it to Goodwill or Salvation Army and prevent it from going to the landfills, because these companies are able to, first of all, collect and afterwards separate through a grading and sorting process, put it into their thrift stores and hopefully give it a secondary life. And if they cannot sell it in Canada, they would be able to export it to other countries where they can have a secondary life.
Because this is something that I remember noticing. Like we can recycle plastic, paper. There's a lot of different materials that could be recycled. We compost organic matters, but when it comes to clothes,
that's right.
There doesn't seem to be any other solution than, because some clothes, let's face it, if you're talking about underwear, for example, you're not giving your old underwear to Goodwill.
That's right.
So the only option seems to be the garbage can. And so what is there any research being done? Is there any possibilities on the way to give us some way to recycle or transform these materials?
Yes. So the important thing to notice is that a lot of the apparel that we are using, clothing that we are using, is made out of polyester, which is synthetic material, about 60%, and then 20-25% of it is made out of cotton, with the remaining being other types of synthetic or biodegradable material. So in case we are buying and using, let's say, biodegradable clothes that are made out of cotton or other material, then this is going to be easier to recycle. But there are also a lot of efforts in order to recycle polyester or synthetic material. But at this stage, the technology in order to recycle polyester is not mature. So a lot of countries are investing in this domain. And we do see a lot of interesting business models coming up. But at the moment, it's definitely a challenge to recycle these. But that doesn't mean that throwing away the clothes is the solution, because even if they cannot be recycled, they can be used for other purposes. For example, clothing that cannot be thrifted or be reused can be turned into, for example, wipes that are used in industrial applications.
Right.
So there are options. In case we can collect the clothes, there are options in order to reuse or recycle the material at the moment, but it's not very technologically efficient. So that's an area that is seeing a lot of innovation and investment at these days.
So we should be thinking about, trying to give a second life to the clothes we don't want. And if we absolutely maybe consume less, but also look at the labels, understand what our clothes are made of, shop secondhand stores, those would be the main moves to make here?
Absolutely. So that's one, and then it would be also important to pay attention how the clothes are actually made, because there are certain companies that are putting a lot of time and effort into making the clothes as sustainable as possible, while the others are not that active in that domain. And if consumers choose to prefer those sustainable companies, that's going to hopefully put pressure on these supply chains in order to make the clothing supply chains more sustainable. So I can give you one little example here. So starting in 2010, 2011, there was this movement by Greenpeace in order to draw attention to the chemicals that are being used in the production of textiles. And of course, this is a major source of polluting the waterways, and also they cause ailments in customers who use them. And since then, this campaign has been partially successful. We have had some major companies such as H&M, Zara, and others, sportswear like Adidas, joining this movement and trying to detox their supply chain. But then other companies such as Gap, for example, or Dolce & Gabbana and others have not joined this movement. So if customers are aware of how the clothing is being produced and prefer essentially those products that tend to be more sustainable, more environmentally friendly, this is going to also create the pressure in the market in order to draw attention on the side of these companies to be more sustainable.
Very, very interesting. Professor NASIRY, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention, and thank you for coming on this afternoon.
No problem. My pleasure.
Professor CJAD NASIRY, Professor of Operations Management at the Desautels Business School at McGill University. You can join in 1.5's Clothing Detox Challenge on Facebook. They're called Detox Vestimentaire. So Detox, D-E-T-O-X, Vestimentaire. They share useful tips and tricks to help you keep on track.